Good afternoon and welcome to this week's issue of Play Print 21, a weekly video news bulletin for the printing industry, brought to you by Print 21 magazine. This week's issue is sponsored by ESCO, Integrated Solutions for Packaging, Printing and Finishing. News this week is led by events in Northern Europe. I'm not referring to the soccer, which has been causing such consternation over there, but to Stora Enso, one of the world's biggest paper makers, which has taken the decision to axe 35% of its capacity, some 1.36 million tonnes of paper a year. Stora Enso is closing two massive mills, one in Sweden, one in Finland, as it adjusts to life it anticipates post-COVID. The closure of the Kvarnsveden mill will take out 570,000 tonnes, split between 400,000 tonnes of supercalendar and magazine and 170,000 tonnes of improved newsprint. The closure of the Finnish mill will take out 790,000 tonnes, 540,000 tonnes of its office papers, 260,000 LWC and MWC. Like all paper makers, Stora Enso is dealing with COVID. Just last week, Print 21 reported paper imports into Australia and New Zealand during last year were down by a whopping 37% in Australia, 28% in New Zealand. Lightweight coated, typically used for catalogues, some of the long run magazines down by 55%, newsprint down by 67%. Tim Woods from Pulp and Paper Edge, the ANZ Bible for the pulp and paper print industries, says the move is very significant and will have consequences for Australia and New Zealand. What they are is yet to be seen, but watch this space. This week, Print 21 comes to you from a typical design studio in homage to desktop revolutionary Adobe co-founder and PDF developer Charles Chuck Geschke, who has passed away aged 81 at his home in California, leaving a remarkable legacy as one of the few people who changed the face of print. Geschke founded Adobe with John Warnock in 1982, just as the first iterations of the Apple Mac were appearing. Together, Adobe and Apple totally transformed the print industry, and within a decade had wiped out the typesetting and electronic page makeup industries and sent print as a whole into a whole new digital era. Geschke and Warnock were working at the legendary Xerox lab at Palo Alto in California when Xerox declined to pursue a page description language technology idea they had called Interpress. They promptly left, founded Adobe and launched their first product, PostScript, which became the spark that fired the desktop publishing revolution that changed print. It meant printers were no longer tied to proprietary systems where fonts were only available from one particular typesetting manufacturer. Although the early desktop typesetting systems were widely panned by the industry, Geschke in fact knew what he was talking about on that front, as both his father and grandfather had been letterpress photo engravers. Today, Adobe is a $20 billion company with 22,000 employees around the world. It's one of the world's biggest software companies. Its products are so ubiquitous that they've entered the lexicon. We all know what it means to have been photoshopped. With PDFs, Illustrator, InDesign, Acrobat, Photoshop, Adobe has become part of virtually every print business in the world. It's also credited with enabling the image and feature-rich World Wide Web. Ballet, Charles Geschke. Andrew Macaulay, CEO at Print and Visual Communications Association, is in hospital following a serious motorbike accident and is not expected to be back at work until the middle of May. Macaulay was riding the bike on his brother's farm in the NSW Hunter Valley when he hit a log in the long grass and took a major tumble. He was initially taken to Singleton Hospital, then transferred to John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle, and is now being transferred to a Sydney hospital. I spoke to him and he's fine and on his way to recovery. PVCA enacted its emergency contingency plans with a four-person executive team comprising Walter Kuhn, John Gorgon-Sakos, Stuart Fish and Tom Eckelsley, taking the responsibility for leadership and decision making. That's it for the weekly video snapshot of the big news in print from print21.com.au. Go to the website for all these stories in depth. You won't find these stories anywhere else, and as well as plenty of other stories we've got there. Thanks to our sponsor ESCO, Integrated Solutions for Packaging, Printing and Finishing. This is Wayne Robinson signing off for another week.